So we launched this thing, Ashley, what was it? About 4.5?
It feels like 4.5 years ago, but it's been, I think,
4.5 months ago. And when we did, part of the reason was we had a great opportunity to connect with Radio Nemo.
Yes.
Obviously, anybody who is in trucking, who has ever owned a radio or been near a radio,
definitely recognizes Dave Nemo's name.
Knows who Dave Nemo is for sure. So we had this opportunity, and we really jumped on it for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And they are humming along down there at Radio Nemo and doing a great job. They've got so much content and great people around them. One of them, anybody listening to Radio Nemo knows Jimmy Mack. They know Jimmy Mack's voice.
Yes.
They know how Jimmy, if you give him a topic, he will.
Oh, gosh, he could run with it.
He will run to the races.
Yeah.
And we thought, we've talked to Lindsay Lawler on the show before.
Great chat
we
with her.
We hadn't talked to Jimmy. So we thought, you know what? What are we waiting for? So Jimmy Mack is, how would you describe Jimmy?
Oh, my gosh.
He does a little bit of everything.
A ball of
energy.
A ball of energy.
Yes.
There we go.
And let's tap into that energy right now with Jimmy Mack. Jimmy Mack.
Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine.
Yeah. How's it going?
Pretty darn good. It's doing actually really, really good. It's been a good couple of days for a change. As opposed to being one step ahead of the sheriff, I'm a step and a half.
Oh, there you go.
Have you heard the joke that Lindsay and I both say? Because we both come on, we actually on our show say this is the greatest live transpo show in the known universe, and then Lindsay ends the show by going, and now the best produced show in the known universe, because there's nothing about our show that feels produced. So it's just we just kind of flop by the seat of our pants.
That's the beauty of it, though, and I think that's probably a good place to start, Jimmy, because Ashley and I, our mission by the end of this conversation is to figure out what makes you tick, and we're gonna get there, and we're gonna figure it out, and we're gonna be able to diagnose you and
rage.
Rage is what drives you. All right. Well, that doesn't come through on the show. You launched this thing. How many months has it been since you launched this thing?
4
months.
Change. Actually, no, wait. June, July, August, September. No, it's been 4. It's been 4.5. 4.5.
How many months or years does it feel like it's been?
I feel like Dick Vermeil when he became coach of the Eagles. He woke up 6 months later and he was 15 years older. So yeah,
it's kind of like the presidency. It ages people that are in there. You feel like you've aged a little bit, huh?
Yeah, actually, when you bring in a couch pillow and sleep on the floor of a place to kind of get things right, and you think it's like a little slice of heaven, you're a little stressed out. That's the reality of my life.
All right, so now we're getting to the bottom of Jimmy Mack here. So let's talk about that, because I don't think people listening realize what it took and what it takes to do what you're doing every day, and not just you. Obviously, you've got a team around you that's supporting you and helping things along the way. But launching this thing, 4.5 months ago, I think you said it was, to where you are now. What has that taken? I mean, from concept to where you are now, you talk about sleepless nights and sleeping on the floor of your office and things like that. It takes a lot, doesn't it?
Well, I can give you a piece of really great news, and one of the biggest problems is we're so busy. There's a line from Citizen Kane where he says, "I'd make my promises now if I weren't too busy arranging to keep them." Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's happened is that we are moving so fast that often things that are really, really positive happen, and we're not as aware of them as we could be. So to kind of give you an example, like today on the show, and even Dave wasn't aware of the depth of this, what Nick DeMeo and Tara Garris and my wife, Claire Marie, have kind of created on the back end was, and I knew we were headed there, I just didn't realize how fast they'd done it. So the way I've been kind of describing the show as kind of a 30,000-foot view is that Radio Nemo shows, all 4 of them, exist both now and forever. And that you have to kind of figure out this format where you're doing 4 hours of radio and you're doing different segments every day. We have over 20 unique segments that include an education for CDL segment, 2 technical segments, one about new technologies with Tech Talk with TMC, the TA Petro segment on maintenance matters, just to kind of give examples. And then the lifestyle stuff like the Last Empty Places with award-winning author and adventurer Peter Stark and Western of the Month and all that kind of guy stuff that these people like. Each one of these segments, though, not only exists on a podcast in the show that gets released, but what you then do is, like, let's just say you like the segment with Kevin Lindsay, Maintenance Matters. If you go to any streaming service and you type in Maintenance Matters, what you end up getting is this kind of crazy thing where you can actually listen to just Maintenance Matters. You can just be a fan of that they exist both live and in the immediate now, and at the same time, if you like a particular segment, it's a podcast. And so you're doing it live with phone calls and all the mistakes that come along with it, but then it has to live later on as a podcast. And I say that because you're moving so fast through time and space that one morning you wake up and you realize that these wonderful people you work with have built this whole world around you. And then you've got to take the next step to fill in what they've done. So it's this constant sense of like this amazingly big picture while still at the same time intimately being a host with, as you guys know, you never, if you host a podcast or a radio show, you're never talking, you're not giving a speech. You're talking to one person. So you're talking to one person while this gigantic world comes to life. If I've made any sense whatsoever, I don't know how I did. But that's kind of the overwhelming sense of what doing this show is like, is that because you're having to make choices in the live where you're also saying like, okay, take a breath here so that when they go back to cut this, to put this on a separate platform, there's a clean space to start the clean podcast segment of the show. And you're balancing both doing the show live, where you've got people in chat rooms and people making phone calls, and at the same time saying you're also doing the show for posterity, because so much of this stuff has to live evergreen, you know? And so you're making choices about what news stories to cover before you kind of transition to the segment and all of that kind of stuff, because you don't want it to get too dated if you're dealing with maintenance and stuff like that. So that's kind of that's a difficulty, but the kind of crazy joy of the show is that you're in two places at once. You're in this kind of immediate now and this sort of timeless continuum at the same time.
Yeah.
One thing that is interesting that I don't think a lot of listeners would understand, you mentioned Nick DeMeo. He's in Florida. You are in New Orleans, and Lindsay is in Nashville, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, I think people think you guys are all sitting around a table. But you're not. Actually, I was surprised that you and Lindsay aren't together.
Well, and by the way, and that is literally, and I'll tell you this, and I'm really proud of this, as good as we are, and I think we're very good together on the air, everybody openly says, as good as you all are just doing the show, if you get us in a room live, it's insane. Because it's literally like, I mean, it turns into like a gigantic situation where we have to remember we have guests on the air sometimes when we're live together, because it's such a delight to see each other. And you're right, but here's the irony. In the old model, because Andre, our producer, was in Ocean Springs and Dave was at home and I was in California and everybody was everywhere, we are closer now than we've ever been, because now we're doing the show where with Andre in studio with me now, it's changed everything. The shows were always fun to do, but when we were on the previous platform, it was a slog because you're by yourself and you have no idea how you're playing even with somebody on a screen.
Yeah.
Lindsay's biggest lament that she's had, and I don't blame her either, is she looks at all those videos and she sees people coming in and out of the studio, and Dre and I there having a kick in the pants, and Madison, our associate producer, there with us, and she's like, "Well, I want to be there. I want to have some fun."
Yeah.
But it really is a matter, and it means that Lindsay and I talk on a regular basis, constantly, talking about ways to kind of like make it both natural, but to also be on those Google Meet cameras and to be able to signal one another, not to step on each other, not to get into overlap, because it's you guys know this, that you can be, if you're live in a room with somebody and you overlap, it sounds like a Howard Hawks film. If you overlap with somebody when two people are in two separate places, it sounds like a technical glitch.
Yep.
And so we've got to do this kind of double thing again, where we are being completely natural and organic, while at the same time using sometimes complex signals by hand to say, "Hey, I gotta." Like you know this. You'll hold your hand up and put the slightest little gap between your fingers and go, "I just need 1 second." A person will take a breath. You'll inject what you say, and then they keep going without missing a beat. And that only comes because we've been working together now. It doesn't seem like it, but it's closing on 4 years we've been friends longer than that, but almost on the air together for like, it seems like, I think it's closing in on 4 years. It's crazy how long we've been doing this.
Yeah, you have your own language by now.
Yeah. And Dean Croak, who has been at conferences with us, he said the most fun thing about being in the room with us is literally watching Dave, Lindsay, and I look like baseball coaches.
Third base coach, yeah, with the signs. I've talked to Ashley about that before.
Yeah, Scott and I are still working on our signs.
We're working on our signs.
We struggle a little bit, but we'll get there.
I mean,
Ashley gives me a finger quite often. I don't know what that means.
Actually, I'm going to send you a picture. Lindsay and I have a picture of us giving everybody else the finger. We're telling drivers they're number one and everybody else where they can go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, I'll give you 2 tips. One of which is the tiny, the tiny gap between 2 fingers. It just says, let me get an injection in there really quickly. And the other one is, Lindsay does this a lot, where she just waves her finger in the air, say, would you please shut up and wrap this up? No, I'm kidding, but you get the idea.
You need to make a YouTube video where you've got all the signs. You're teaching people how to do the signs. That'd be fun.
Oh yeah. And my other favorite is you, me, no, you go.
Oh yeah.
Ashley and I have mastered.
We've had that. Yeah.
I wouldn't say we've mastered that. We try to master that for sure.
Yeah. My other favorite is you, then me, then back to you. That's my other favorite.
Yep.
You get the idea.
So Jimmy, you're doing this thing, this huge project, and again, we're 4.5 months in on this thing, which again, it's one of these things where it feels like it's either been 4 days or it's been 4 years, depending on the situation that you find yourself in. Things are going well. You guys sound great. We've talked about the rapport that you all have there and the kind of the support system and everything. Challenges though, and this is something Ashley and I have run into too with kind of launching this new thing on our end. There are challenges that pop up that you didn't even know existed until they pop up, and then you got to figure out how to deal with them. You I know I've been dealing with a number of those things too, and I think, on air you can't really tell what those are, but behind the scenes, what's been kind of the most challenging thing for you and everybody else there as you embark on this new endeavor?
Sometimes upgrading your equipment isn't always the best thing. As you probably notice, I tend to talk in movie metaphors a lot. One of the things when you watch these kids listen to old music for the first time on all these YouTube videos, a lot of them talk about the cleanliness and how clean and gorgeous everything sounds. But it's also because they had limited technology. They couldn't blend. Everything had to be really kind of crisp with really kind of clear beats. When you get the kind of equipment we have with all of its bells and whistles and newfangled technologies, as you too well know, sometimes wrong buttons get pushed more often than they used to in the old days when you were simply working from a plain old basic board. And so as you kind of attempt to make the jump into new technology, sometimes you just can't keep pace with them. And we've had a couple of bumps there in regards to like, is that mic on? Is that mic on?
Mm-hmm.
That mic's on. Oh my God, people can hear what I just said about them. That's terrible. That kind of stuff happens. The other big thing is the programming thing in the sense, and you guys probably know this as well too. I can't tell you the number of times I've looked into the chat on YouTube or looked at a comment on Facebook and somebody literally uses the phrase, here you are, I thought you'd gone away. And once we get people listening to the show, and you guys have the same experience, once they hear you, they stick with you. But it's like the biggest challenge behind the scenes is actually getting people to get there, to understand, and it's the craziest thing. It has never been easier to listen to us. And yet it's like, marketing's still marketing, my friends, and that's always a hard thing. But the biggest technical problem I have is that you have to really kind of make room for backups. You have to have backups inside of backups, because we had a situation just about a week and a half ago where we went down and it had nothing to do with us. We did everything right. But the cable service we used decided that maintenance in the middle of New Orleans' biggest tourist area at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Friday was a good idea.
Yeah, of course. Why not? Yeah.
and you're dealing with that, and you're going like, I don't even know what to do here, because like if we were in New York or we were in like a bigger market space, it would be an easier thing. There would be a backup. But sometimes you guys are over in Grain Valley, but it's like, you guys get it, where it's like sometimes everybody thinks all this newfangled technology makes things a whole lot easier. But I got to tell you, and Lindsay will be the first to tell you, the first 2 months of the show, Lindsay was straight up heroic because, as Ashley pointed out, Nick's in Florida, I'm in New Orleans, and she's in Nashville. She couldn't hear herself. Meaning on her headset, she could hear us, she could hear the guest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The one person she couldn't hear because of the equipment that the previous people we worked with had set her up with, she couldn't hear herself. And I didn't realize the depth of the problem until I went up there. And she was begging people like, hey, can you hook a sister up? Yeah. And I got up there and put those headphones on and went, oh, my God. Imagine doing a show and doing it well for 2 months and not even knowing what your levels were and having to trust your two partners in New Orleans to tell you when you're too loud or too soft.
Yeah. Wow. No, thanks.
Yeah, no.
And she did it.
Yeah.
And she did it because she has so much experience, being on a stage where the monitor blows out and you're like, I just got to guess from the audience reaction that I'm doing okay.
Professional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. No, seriously. Seriously, have you guys ever seen Lindsay perform live on a stage?
No, haven't had the
Oh, my
pleasure.
God, dude. It's a lake of fire. It's like, her recorded stuff is great. I love it. It's terrific. Lindsay on a stage with an audience is just like a different experience. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you don't get it by that point, you just hate music and life in general, and you suck and to go away.
She did invite us out to Nashville.
Yes,
right,
she did.
Ashley?
Yeah. We chatted with her a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I heard it. It was great. I don't miss a single episode. You guys know I sit there in like absolute terror that something's going to go wrong every time we play one of y'all sing on the air. Not with you guys, with me. And I sit there like with my thumb in my mouth going, oh, my God. And then finally, I got to tell you, every time I get y'all's show description, thank you for that, by the way. Every time I get that, I'm always like, we always listen to the first part of it going like, okay, there it is. Okay, good. We're good. And then Dre puts it on the monitor and I sit there and listen and just be like, oh, that's a good way to spend my afternoon.
Love
it.
Well, we love to hear it.
Yeah.
Jimmy, I'm curious. I kind of want to get a little bit of your backstory and talk about where you came from.
It's an open-ended question.
I have a standard answer. I am one of 32 grandchildren on my mom's side of the family. I come from a big Irish Catholic family in the city of New Orleans. My dad's people got through the Depression because they were all railroad people. My father was an oil and gas attorney, and we grew up around yard masters and porters and railroad executives and teamsters. And so when I ended up in a situation where I met a beautiful woman, and it turned out that her dad was Dave Nemo, and he and I became very, very good friends. And someone basically left the job, and Dave said, "Look, I'm not offering you a job. I just need somebody to fill in for a couple of weeks." And I said, "Sure," because it was a weekend gig, and I had another gig at the time. I'm a reporter. I worked for the Times-Picayune and the New Orleans Advocate. And a number of news services in the 90s. And I said, I can handle the job. I don't know how much about trucking I know. I said, I know how Teamsters work, and I know intermodal transport, and I know a lot about law enforcement. I said, so I'll fake my way through it until I get to the other side. And then it turned out I did a couple of weeks and then a couple of months. And then the previous platform said, no, he's fine. We'll go with him. That'll work. And that's kind of how I get here. But, I mean, all of it is based on the fact that, Sunday the 26th of October was my 8th wedding anniversary. I didn't forget the flowers, by the way, guys. I actually was ahead of that by a week.
Nice.
What kind of flowers?
It was a fall floral arrangement that looked a lot like the arrangement that we had for our wedding.
Oh, okay. There you go. Nice.
Love that.
Yeah, it was active thought. I wasn't just like, here's some roses. Go with
yeah, that's why I asked. That's why I asked,
Yeah, I wasn't faking it. But yeah, and so I did that, and and I've been doing this ever since. And I'm a playwright. I've written a lot of plays. One that's been produced at the World War II Museum in New Orleans, and I like putting stuff together. I mean, I realize a lot of that is from my railroad background, or the idea that I realized at some point, because I run the programming over here as well. I'm the one that actually came up with the format for all of Dave's show, Nemo Nation. And, Lindsay is her own hub on We Should Write. That's her bag. And I kind of just said, like, I'll make some suggestions here or there. But at the end of the day, she runs that. But like Nemo Nation and Road Gang Radio is kind of like one of the decisions I made from leaving previous platform was just to make an effort to give people more fast-paced stuff. I wanted to basically cram in as many guests and as much diversity as I could, both on Dave's show with giving marginalized voices a voice, and I don't mean for the sake of, but I mean like the Punjabi Trucking Association is a big player in trucking. So we should have them on, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, and there are people who do logistics and supply chain stuff all over the world who we should have on. People need to know what's going on in India and what's going on in Eastern Europe. And so, you know, I'm having a blast. It's just like you don't realize that the whole world is being built around you because you're so into your one little pocket. That's the other thing that you guys probably are experiencing too. You're working so hard on just your content, making sure that each individual project is wonderful. You don't realize if you have people you love and trust, they're building a world around you, and you've got to stop every once in a while to say, good God Almighty, you people need to toot your horn because I forget to toot my own.
Mm-hmm.
And you got, you know what it's like to be a workaholic. You understand that. You know, I mean, always be working. You know,
I'm not sure to the same degree.
I don't think so. No.
I get the sense, Jimmy, that you are like on like almost 24 hours a day. Well, Ashley and I were talking actually earlier. We're like, I wonder, like, how much does Jimmy sleep? How much do you sleep, Jimmy?
Actually, if you actually would ask Lindsay, her response would be, "My partner is a maniac." And and by the way, it's a real thing. I'm not sleep deprived. I am one of those entities. You know how there is one group of people. You know, Dean Croak and I are obsessed with the kingdom of sleep. But you know how there is one outside group of people who can get by on 5.5 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And by the way, nobody can get by on less. That's the burnout moment. I do 5.5 hours of sleep.
Gosh,
and it works for you.
Do that.
Well, I do it, but I do it religiously. It's the one thing that has kept me sane. Is that like I'm usually in bed by around 10 o'clock at night, and by 3:30 in the morning, I'm awake and back to work.
Good
without an alarm?
man.
With an alarm or without?
It depends.
Yeah.
I can pretty much read myself, too. There are moments when I know I am dog bone tired, and every once in a while, like the best of us, I don't have much room to maneuver, and every once in a while, I will be like, set a brace of alarms. I also have people that love me very much, like, I don't know if you know this, Andre drives in every morning from Ocean Springs. It's an hour and 20-minute drive, and so sometimes I'll send him a text like once every 2 weeks and be like, hey, dude, I'm wrecked. And I'll send him a timed text that says, do me a favor, when you actually hit the I-10,
give me a call.
Give me a call. Get my ass up. And I'll still get here before him, but it's him calling. He'll call. We'll just keep calling until I pick up. You know, often I'll wake up and call him and be like, I'm awake, I'm fine. But yeah, it's just sleep. You know, and it's not one of those I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of things. It's just like I just keep working, and then I realize, oh God, I got to go to bed. Yeah, I got to go to bed. Well, my dad has the same thing.
There's that gene, right? Maybe you were talking about that. There's a gene that they found that, and I can't remember which population of people it is, but they've got this gene, and essentially it's like a sleep. I don't even know what the name is, right? You know what I'm talking about?
I could have told you 20 minutes ago. It's supposed to be like it's like I have two superpowers. I can find good parking on Christmas Eve, and I only need 5.5 hours of sleep.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Wow.
That's wild.
You know, that's it. And it has played to my advantage, but it also makes my on-air partner think I'm a complete maniac.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I understand.
Although I do have Teddy Roosevelt's coffee drinking habit too, which people get really aggravated at. People like, Dre at one point actually said, he goes, "That's your fifth cup of coffee during this show," and I went, "Yeah, I'll be dead in a half an hour. Keep the show going."
Yeah,
So.
who's counting, right? Yeah, at that point.
Yeah.
You mentioned your background, and you've done a lot of different things, and I think just looking at your biography, you've led an interesting life, in that you've again done a number of things in a varied number of areas and whatnot. Trucking obviously speaks to you, and it's something that you enjoy, and it's something that you have really embraced, and you kind of talked about the origins of that. But is it just one of these things that just hooked you from the beginning? And I think your background maybe you kind of had a foot in the door, it sounds like, a little bit, but were you just immediately enamored by the industry?
Yeah. I mean, I won't lie. The first thing I had to do was Dave Nemo's idea of training is, I'm going to walk away now. Go ahead and do it.
Good luck, yeah.
He actually just threw me in on a Friday, and then that week, Tim Ridley got ill, and Dave's like, you got to fill in for Tim for an entire week, which is fine. It's only 2 hours in the morning. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning West Coast time, which is where I did most of the shows. Don't forget that. I was doing most of my first shows in California from 4 to 8 in the morning. Hours that are so bad they're almost good again. But I did a show where there was a moment like when I first started 2017, 2018, when people began to realize the importance of the trucking industry, even before COVID, and it was kind of a trucking moment. So I called all these people, and I asked on the show, I said, guys, think that you just met me in a coffee shop or a diner, and I asked you point blank, what is one thing I need in order to be a great truck driver? And the phone lines lit up. And all morning long, it was calls about learning how to read a map, learning how to actually use a pencil. I know that sounds like a joke, but there's a whole thing about that. Well, remembering to carry matches, all these little tiny bits of business. And what I loved is that it's the action. I just love situations where I feel like people are in the middle of it. So even though you spend 7, 8, 9, 10 hours alone on the road, there's docks and there's all these people kind of mixing it up and figuring stuff out together and logistically trying to solve problems. So I love trucking, and I love the industry as well, because I like the idea of my great uncle, the one who was who was the vice president of Kansas City Southern. One of the things that he did was he was in charge during the Marshall Plan. He was in charge of bringing troops back home. And so he actually figured out how to bring the buses into the city of New Orleans and then ship people off out west when they got in. And I just love that, the idea of moving pieces, train yards and hub yards and trucking yards, and the idea of people going off by themselves for long distances and then coming back together and telling stories. What's not to love about that?
Yeah. Well, and also problem solving, having a problem and figuring out a way along with a number of other people to get it done.
Yeah. And people who understand that sometimes you have to back up a couple of steps in order to move forward and have the patience to do it. One thing I figured out about the job that these men and women perform, that you guys talk to them on a regular basis too, is that the best way to become a great truck driver, it seems to me, is to make a friend of boredom. Because once you do, you start figuring out what you can do to fill the boredom, and that usually involves some form of pre- or post-tripping, or just keeping yourself sharp and entertained and giving yourself the kind of quality of life you deserve.
Yeah.
And I think that these guys and gals are consistently solving problems that most people would go running from a building that they ran into or encountered. Yeah. I think that's really cool. How could you not like these folks?
It is really cool.
How could you not?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, one thing we wanted to ask you about, your bio on radionemo.com says you have been to 49 states. Which one haven't you been to, and what do you have against them?
Well, I don't, and that party is over. I got to change it. It was Rhode Island.
Oh, and you went? And you went?
I went. I went to Rhode Island. I went for an H.P. Lovecraft convention.
All right, there you go.
It was Rhode Island. It was just this kind of weird fluke where I was like looking at it. I was like, have I been to Rhode Island? I've actually been to Alaska.
Yeah,
nice.
I've actually flown into Alaska. But I've been to all of them now. I got to change that. But everybody would get really upset. They're like, I said, well, come on, Rhode Island is an easy one to get to. You can carpet the place.
Yeah, we were expecting Alaska or Hawaii.
Yeah, right.
Those
hard
are
to
the
get
two.
to. Yeah.
Well, I did a doctorate at the University of Washington in Seattle, and so it's so easy. Once I realized I love traveling for no reason. I know that sounds like, but to our listeners, it doesn't sound nuts at all. So when I got to Seattle, I'm like, wait a minute, dude. I'm like, I'm not far either by plane in either direction to Anchorage or to Honolulu. It's just not that far anymore. People don't realize how far out the American West actually is. Well, they do. Yeah. Our listeners do. Yeah. Your listeners do. But it's like, and I'm like going, I'm kind of here. I should just go check these places out.
And you did.
And I did. And I did. By the way, Honolulu and Anchorage, it's really cool. At night, when you approach, they look the same because they're both cities of 400,000 people, and they're like these giant pockets of light in pitch darkness.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I've been to Honolulu. I've never been to Alaska.
It's great, isn't it? You fly in at night?
No, I think I flew in during the day. It's been a while, though.
Yeah.
I got one for you. So I took one of our former colleagues, lovely woman named Summer, had never been anywhere, and she decided to do some traveling with me, and we had to fly into Los Angeles to fly back to Phoenix. And so we begin to fly towards Los Angeles. She'd never seen anything like it. They were like going, we're 45 minutes out, and she's like, but we're here. She had no idea how big that city is. So that bank of lights at the ground, she was like, had never seen. It's like watching people travel for the first time is one of the great joys of my life. Like Tara, who you guys know so well, had never been anywhere until she joined the company. Can you imagine being with somebody who's never been to Washington, D.C. before.
Yeah.
And walking there with them and watching them react to it. It's like Christmas morning.
I've never been to Washington, D.C. It is a place like I definitely want to go.
You should go.
Well, listen, then you should go. Then you should come and join us when we do the Vet Ready Summit over in Washington, D.C. You should just figure out a way to get your butt over there. You should come.
Washington, D.C. is incredible.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to go, for sure.
Yeah.
It's the accent.
Ashley, I don't think, you haven't been to New Orleans, have you?
No.
I've never been either.
No.
So there's one place that we need to come down and
I got it. So you go to Nashville, you do the Nashville thing with Lindsay, and then I meet you guys up there, and then all four of us come back down to New Orleans. That's what we do.
Sounds like a good time.
All right. Well, this weekend I got no plans. Let's do it.
I'm in. By the way, don't tell that to a New Orleanian ever. They're like, okay, when can we expect you?
Yeah.
I want you down there.
What's the one thing? Then we'll wrap it up after this, Jimmy. But since we've never been to New Orleans. Forget tourist trappy, places and all that. Where would you take us? Where should we go if we've never been?
I won't lie, guys. I'd walk the neighborhood. I mean, we talk about it on the air on a regular basis. I'm not kidding. I would walk the neighborhood that we're in. The Edgar Degas house is smack dab in the middle on Esplanade Avenue. We are less than 3 minutes from the French Quarter. It's a 15-minute walk to the French Quarter from where we are. It is a 10-minute walk to the third largest urban park in the United States. We're less than 10 minutes away from where Jazz Festival is. The best fried chicken in the city of New Orleans is 6 blocks from where we are. Cafe Degas, which is an amazing restaurant. Lola's, which has amazing paella. Some of the best donut shops. The donut shop across the street from us, about 2 blocks away, opens at 5 o'clock in the morning with fresh donuts. We would walk this neighborhood, and I would feel good about standing pat because there's actually a beignet parlor that's open 24 hours. It sits in the middle of City Park as well, too. You could do a lot worse than being here.
How do you not weigh 400 pounds, Jimmy? Just listening to you, I think I put on a few pounds. A lot of walking?
Walking. 15,000 steps a day. If I don't get them, I feel like I don't know if I'd be able to sleep. I don't know if I could get 5.5 hours if I didn't walk as much as I did. That's the truth.
Man.
You got to exhaust yourself. That's it.
All right.
I'm fired up. Let's do some radio.
Ashley.
Yeah.
Ashley and I will bring our walking shoes and some stretchy pants for all
those
that
donuts and all the food.
Just do me a favor. You come between October and the middle of April, because after that, the joke about October in New Orleans is we call it Oxygen Restoration Month. You do not want to be here in the summertime. So let's make sure you get here in the fall or the spring, okay?
Noted.
Jimmy, we'll take you up on that. We really appreciate you. We appreciate everybody you work with over there at Radio Nemo, and we appreciate you talking with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey guys, we love playing you guys after our show. It's such a great show, and really appreciate being a part of it. Thank you, man.
Thanks for listening. Today's episode of Trucking with OOIDA was brought to you by a dedicated team of people. That includes Jim Fetzer, Tennille Flick, and Kim Boren.
You can listen to new episodes and extended interviews on your favorite podcast platform and on the OOIDA YouTube page. Please subscribe while you're there. If you've got thoughts, we'd love to hear them. Call us at 1-800-324-6856 and leave a message, or send us an email to podcast@ooida.com, and we might include it on the show.